This program is made possible by a grant from Avalon Images, a creative services company specializing in strategic marketing, business development, and entertainment production. When image is everything, AI makes your image count.
Where can you find gourmet organic coffees, a friendly hometown atmosphere, and beautiful views of Humboldt Bay and beyond? It's Has Beans Cafe, open every day at 2nd and I Street in the heart of Old Town Eureka. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for episode 4 of Sentinel Interviews. This is Charles Douglas of the Humboldt Sentinel here at the Community Media Center in Eureka. Episode 4 is the runoff election interviews between Bonnie Neely and Virginia Bass. Bonnie Neely, of course, is the incumbent 4th District Supervisor for 24 years and is running on her record of accomplishments, while Virginia Bass has been on the Eureka City Council for 10 years, the last 4 of those as Mayor of Eureka. Please join us to find out a lot more about these candidates than we were able to get into in the spring, particularly their positions on economic developments, the future of the balloon track, as well as the controversial subdivision proposal in the Ridgewood Heights area known as Forester Gill. Don't forget to tune in every week, Thursday, 7 o'clock, replaying Sunday, 3:30 p.m. for Sentinel Interviews, as we talk to more candidates running for public office here in Humboldt County. Supervisor Neely, thanks so much for joining us here at Has Beans today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Charles. Thanks.
So welcome back, and please let the folks know at home and on the internet, you're running in this runoff for Humboldt County Supervisor. What gives you the hope and the strength to get through this and to overcome the mathematical odds at least and get another term on the Board of Supervisors?
Well, I'm moving into the general election with some really great endorsements right off the top. I've been endorsed by the Democratic Central Committee, and of course the 4th District is predominantly Democratic. It's great to have that endorsement. It required a 2/3 vote of the Democratic Central Committee, so I'm really proud to have that endorsement right up front. I've also been endorsed by the Central Labor Council, the operating engineers. I've been endorsed by the county's employee union, ASME Local 1684. And these endorsements are people that follow county issues. They know that I can get things done for the community and for the district, and I'm really proud to have those endorsements going into the general election. I think they're really going to help.
And has it ever been in your whole political career, really, at least in local elections, have you ever kind of faced this kind of situation where you're actually the underdog against someone who's in the lead?
Well, you know, and these are real different times in terms of the race. I'm very proud to be the underdog in this particular race. I know that my opponent has attracted a lot of developer money, and I think that's because the county is now looking at the policies for the general plan, and my opponent's supporters have real different ideas about what they'd like to see in Humboldt County. I think that I'm the candidate for smart growth. People have seen my decision making over the last several years, and they know that's where I stand. I think my opponent's supporters are really looking for anything goes type of growth. And so the policies that we put in place and that I'm supporting are to protect ag land and forest lands. That's why our economy is diversified, and I think that's why the county has a balanced budget right now as opposed to the city of Eureka. We've really tried to expand our economy and diversify it so that we're not all relying on one industry. I think Eureka's mayor strategy for economic development has really failed. This regional retail center policy for economic development has really not played out well for the citizens of Eureka. With the economy the way it is right now, about half of the retail here in Eureka is vacant. And I think there's a contrast there between the county's economy, us finding niches for organic dairying, grass-fed beef. Those are the types of economic issues that we deal with, and we need those lands in agriculture and forest lands to keep that economy going.
And getting right into the general plan, how do you provide for affordable housing, provide for some population growth, while still trying to avoid the whole sprawl and Southern Californiization of Humboldt County?
That's a good way to describe it, and I think that the people of Humboldt County do not want to see growth at that rate. The Southern California model is what we're all opposing. And how you do that is you locate your housing close to existing infrastructure. And that's what, in the general plan, we have options A, B, C, and D, and options A and B are the ones that provide that type of growth. Planned, smart growth within areas where we have existing infrastructure, not sprawling out in between cities and just building in the Southern California model.
And so do you have a particular general plan option that you are backing, and why so?
I'm looking at options A and B. I really have thrown out option C, which is anything goes, and option D, which is the status quo. I really think that the policies that we adopt in the general plan will determine what this county looks like for the next 30 years. And I've been involved in that process all along. It was my push that got us a water element in the general plan. I think it's important for us to be in control of our water quality, and certainly where our water is determines where our growth will be. We need to have that analysis. We don't want other communities diverting water out of this area. That's one of the assets that we do have. I think that the smart growth policies were introduced during my time in office. This is about creating trails between towns and cities, creating other forms of transportation besides just vehicle transportation. I think that'll help us in terms of our air quality, and it'll make our communities more connected.
One more element of that general plan, just heading back to that for a sec, I noticed there's a communications element that tries to speak to the need for more broadband redundancy and more outreach, especially to the rural areas. Obviously, that's pretty far outside the 4th District. But then I'm seeing that some people are coming forward saying they're electrosensitive and they don't want transmission of internets of local public access stations so people can see the Board of Supervisors live down there in Southern Humboldt or out in Eastern Humboldt. Do you think there's a balance to be struck there, or do you just think those complaints are without merit and that we do need to really, by microwave transmission or other means, get that information and get those broadband resources out there to the rural communities?
I think we really need to get those broadband resources out to the rural communities. I'm on the subcommittee for broadband in Humboldt County. There's been some great work done in association with Humboldt State University and with the private sector. We're looking at bringing broadband in. We need the backup systems so that what's happened 2 or 3 times here locally is our one line has been cut because of different construction projects or improvements on the freeway, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. With regard to the safety issues, I think we're sensitive to that, and location of towers and various other things. We're sensitive in terms of putting those facilities where they cannot impact a community. We're sensitive to using existing towers and not just putting towers up all over the place. I think the policies that we establish in the general plan will speak to those issues, and certainly the public is welcome to come and address those matters in front of the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission, which is where the hearings are being held right now.
Really, why do you think the general plan has taken so long, and is it a bad thing to try to have the fullest extent of public process possible, but at what point does that become just bureaucratic foot dragging and running into a wall of the same way it is now, should always be that way, and the staff want to keep things on an even keel? Do you think we've gone too far one way or the other?
Actually, I think this is the most important discussion that people can have in any community, is what you'll look like in the future. What's the vision as a community for your future? And so it means it's going to take some time, and we are by law only required to present information and have a 10-day turnaround before we take action. But this Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission really wanted to welcome public participation, not just in the cities, but in the unincorporated areas. And so we And our Planning Commission have held hearings all over the county. They've really opened up this process. Instead of responding and making a decision within 10 days, we've extended that for 30 days and sometimes 60 days because we wanted to make sure we got input from everyone that wants to participate. So I think what we're seeing now is it's wrapping up at the Planning Commission level. We are optimistic that they're going to bring it to the Board of Supervisors this year. The decision makers are anxious to get their hands on it as well. A lot of us have been watching those Planning Commission meetings and really learning and hearing what the public wants, and we're excited about bringing forth these smart growth policies and making sure we protect our ag and forest lands in our adoptions.
Well, smart growth was certainly a theme brought up in opposition to Measure J, which was the attempt to rezone the balloon track here in Eureka to put in a Walmart shopping center.
Right.
Obviously, that was rejected by a vast majority of the voters.
61%.
Right, and yourself and Patty Berg were really leading in that campaign.
Yeah, we were the co-chairs of the No on Measure J campaign.
And so are you a bit astounded that it almost seems like development-wise you've come full circle back to this sort of big box proposal for otherwise really irreplaceable waterfront property?
Right. I think the property was zoned public by the city of Eureka 20 plus years ago because they looked at it as a waterfront dependent possibility, and really because of port activities. And those plans for port activities aren't really dead in Humboldt Bay or in our county, and it's important that lands be set aside for those uses. Public use wasn't for some of the things my opponent is talking about. They weren't looking at it for a sewer plant or a jail or whatever. It was really this potential for economic development and port development that kept this site zoned for public use. What I see different in terms of Measure J and what's happening now is, of course, Measure J was opposed by the Eureka City Council back in 1999. And this time, the Eureka City Council is supporting Measure N, which means why have the measure on the ballot? Measure N could be adopted, or an ordinance for a rezone could be adopted by the City Council right now. So I sort of question the merits of an initiative. You know, you can get, it's not a do you like it or not like it, it's a rezone, and really the land use decisions are pretty much up to the elected officials that the city puts in place to make those decisions. So I sort of question the reasoning behind putting Measure N on the ballot.
Well, and certainly Measure N hasn't attracted much in the way of organized opposition. There wasn't even an argument submitted against it for the sample ballot. Is it a matter of the local environmental or smart growth advocating community simply feels, well, whatever this measure goes, even if it stays in the ballot, there's a lawsuit to throw it off, of course, that really it's going to be in the hands of the Coastal Commission in the end anyway to determine what that coastal area property is going to be used for?
Yeah, I think that really right now the issue with regard to the balloon track has to do with cleanup. That cleanup issue has been around us for the last 10 years. Water Quality issued an order back in 2002, I believe it was, and with that in mind, the city has had all this time in which they could have taken action to abate this toxic site situation, and I'm really sorry to see that no action was taken, no leadership was really shown to clean up the balloon track. And what I see now is that the developers need to quit stalling, quit filing these frivolous lawsuits and stalling. Let's get the balloon track cleaned up so we can attract some good jobs to Eureka. That's what I see as a real difference here. People want the site cleaned up. We may debate about what the final uses will be. You know, what's the highest and best use? I know there'll be some that still push for port development uses. There'll be some that think we need more retail. I question that based on the amount of vacancies we have in retail right now. But let's get the site cleaned up, and that's stalled right now because the developers do not have ownership or title to all of the properties that they're proposing to develop on. Until that issue is cleared up, I don't see them being able to move forward. So I sort of view these things as self-inflicted wounds. They're saying people are stopping them, but actually they have the control and they have the land use capabilities to make this happen. They just haven't exercised those, and I think it's a shame. This is still exposing the community to these toxics. We're exposing the bay to the runoff continuously, and I'd like to see some leadership there really challenging the property owners and the developers to clean it up.